Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and today I'm doing kind of a mic test. I'm also doing a Q&A, but I'll probably just do one question and then kind of shift into rambling talks about stuff. Um, this is going to be a question for Wandering Heroes of Ogre. For those who don't know, it's our Wuxia RPG. It's the game that I run the most. It's probably our most popular game, and it's one that we've been developing a lot. So there's a lot of supplements and modules, things like that we've released for it. And it's the kind of wuxia, if you love like classic Shaw Brothers or 90s wuxia, or even more recent things like Reign of Assassins or Shadow or House of Flying Daggers, I think it's a really good system for emulating that stuff. And it takes kind of an interesting approach where we do include supernatural elements, which I think help with the longevity of campaigns, but you can kind of emphasize or de-emphasize that as needed. And so I think if people look at my blog entries with my sessions, they'll see that they're very human centric. They're not as the supernatural stuff is woven in lightly, I would say. And what is there is usually more in the realm of horror, so it's more in the realm of a Chinese ghost story type stuff. Though there is like higher levels of play where you can be dealing with deities and things like that. So the question today is whether there was a list of tips, rulings, things that we share that keep the games running smoothly. Maybe a cheat sheet or something. I apologize if I'm not reading the question very clearly here. But basically, if there's any tips that we can give on, you know, how to how to run and manage an Ogre campaign or run the game during play. And I think this was asked in the Discord channel, and I think the first answer I gave was to crib techniques somewhere on the number one. The players should be doing this in their own character sheets, but the GM should be cribbing techniques too. It's if you're making NPCs, this is what I do. So, Wandering Heroes of Ogre has a lot of techniques, and techniques are kind of, this is a bad analogy, but they kind of operate a little bit like spells in a lot of games, in that they're abilities that have a paragraph or two of description, and when they're invoked, you need to refer to that paragraph so that you understand how it's used. And they usually have a cathartic and a non-cathartic use. The cathartic has a little more oomph, but it can come at greater cost to you. You can become imbalanced and taken over by chi spirits. So I think that I think that the when the GM is like, say for example, you're preparing for your next session, and you're developing a new sect, or you're developing a particular NPC like an assassin or something, and you make the character, and you give them all the techniques according to the character creation, or maybe you use the Bedrock app, which will make the process probably easier, but you'd end up with a list of kung fu techniques that character can use. But when you go to run the game, if you're not familiar with those techniques, you're going to have to look them up when you play it, and that can slow things down. And so I don't mind looking things up, but I do like to have them cribbed. And so what cribbing is I usually select 1 to 2 techniques, and I write a 1 sentence to 2 sentence description on the page of how it's used and the effects. And the good thing about that is you can do all the math related to, because some techniques are affected by chi rank or your martial discipline rank. So you can do all that math and put that into the sentence. And that I usually find very handy. Also, this is a good way to get in the habit of developing signature techniques. So when you make an NPC, they're going to have techniques that exist in the book, but this is wuxia, and so sometimes you want to have NPCs that have abilities that reflect their character, because they're often, what's going to happen is an NPC is going to show up. They might stay in the game for several sessions or for the whole campaign, but a lot of them are going to die after one combat with the PCs. And so something the wuxia genre does really good because of that is they use shorthand to convey who the character is, and that'll be their weapon choice, how they're dressed, little personality traits that can be conveyed quickly in the brief exchange of dialogue, and the techniques they use usually reflect their personality. And so instead of cribbing techniques that already exist, something that I do is on the fly, I will create a technique or two for that character, just to kind of help reflect who they are as a figure. So if if I want a character who's kind of a ferocious, and unapologetic, merciless character, I might give him some kind of palm technique that's devastating, and I'll eyeball the overall effect. So, like, I don't know, maybe people, maybe they call him like the thundering palm or something, and so you write a little technique, the thundering palm, and when he hits you, it does damage, but then it reverberates the next round, and like affects your heart or affects your internal organs, and maybe it's like a Nigong technique, say. And so you just kind of write what you think the effect should be. So maybe off the top of my head, I don't know what chi rank I'm putting the technique at, but let's say I put it at 4, and I decide, okay, it's going to be non-cathartic. It's just going to be like 2d10 followed by 1d10, and maybe cathartic, it becomes 4d10 open followed by 2d10 open. I don't know. I usually, what I would have to do is refer to other techniques to kind of gauge where that should be. But it honestly isn't a huge deal if it's a little off or not, if it's under or over. Because, again, Ogre isn't really about balancing out all these techniques on a spreadsheet and making sure they all line up in terms of where the numbers are. A Chi Rank 4 technique that is above or below other Chi Rank 4 techniques is totally fine. And so, and I apologize, my wife is just texting me. So I am going to have to go. But that is, I think, I'll try to pick this up again, because I do want to talk about the things I do to make the game run easier. But those are two things that work really well. And I think the good thing about the last one is it really gets the GM in the habit of making techniques, but without the pressure of, like, because when I make a new technique that's like a formal new technique, I'll write it out like it's in the book. It's got the name, it's got the discipline, the chi rank, the skill that it's related to, all that kind of stuff, whether it's a normal technique or a counter. And then it's got like a brief description of what it does, a paragraph or two, one paragraph usually, of, make a blank skill roll. If you succeed, X, Y, Z, and then the cathartic description. But when you're doing things this way, it's kind of, you're just being creative. And it's a little easier, it's less pressure, because I view these kind of entries as more tentative than those kind of entries. And I think it's really helpful for GMs to get in the habit of that, because that's really one of the secrets of making Ogre work, is getting inventive with the Kung Fu and getting excited about the different Kung Fu techniques that you're introducing and that are being brought into the world by these characters. So the only other advice that I would give is this, and I do have to go because my wife just told me I need to leave. But the other advice I would give is this: watch a lot of wuxia or read a lot of wuxia. I think Ogre draws a lot more from movies and the visuals of movies, so I'm going to lean on watching wuxia. But the books are good because they give descriptions of techniques that don't show up in the movies as much. Like, you get a more thorough understanding of what the technique is. But watch a lot of wuxia and try to take note of techniques as you see them. And again, I would and what you're going to see, number one, is you're going to see specific techniques that characters have that are unique to those characters. You're also going to see general techniques that appear and are part of the cinematic language of wuxia. And in certain decades, certain things will show up a lot more than other things. So, like, something that I know I see a lot of in 90s wuxia is the guy swinging his sword, and it creates like an air burst that goes through a bunch of stuff in like a long line. So he's like cutting down trees with a single air burst. We have techniques like that in the book, but that to me is like that sounds like a late 80s, 90s wuxia technique. So you want to get in the habit of watching a lot of wuxia movies. I think, again, the thing that makes running Ogre so easy for me is the fact that I've seen so many wuxia movies that I can draw on these things very easily, and I know like what the character types are. I know what is a character type, even if he's like a little bit different than a normal character, that would fit, like, like I know how to do variations of things and make it, and it feels like it fits the genre, at least to me. And I think that that really just comes from watching a lot. And so, that takes time. I don't think that you need to kill yourself doing this. It should be something that you do because you like it. But presumably, if you're running a wuxia campaign, it's because you like wuxia. So watch wuxia movies and you'll find that you're going to get a lot of inspiration from them in terms of techniques, in terms of adventures, in terms of how you can respond when players do certain things in the campaign. You're just going to have a good handle on what the genre is all about and how to make it gameable. Maybe I'll come back on again and talk more about that, because one of the things that was like a really fun part of making Ogre for me was going and not just watching movies that I had seen, but seeing new movies that I had never seen, because I was obsessed with this idea of getting as many of the tropes in as I could. And so I was watching, all kinds of wuxia movies. I was watching all of these wuxia TV shows, these drama series from Hong Kong and China that are like 50 episodes to 100 episodes each. Those are also beneficial for a lot of different reasons. They're more of a time investment, though. But I would say for those, pick something that you're interested in. So as a lot of listeners will know, wuxia movies are often based on wuxia novels. Not all of them, but many of them are. And not all those novels have been translated into English, but a lot of them have been made into TV series. And so you can still get the story through the TV series. And some have been translated by fan translations, but not into official books. And so I know a lot of people, they might like having an official translation before they watch something. So, again, now recently I think they have translated Return of Condor Heroes, I think the first book at least, and Legend of Condor Heroes has been translated. And I know that there's a number of good series for those. And so something that I would probably recommend to people is go and watch one of the drama series of Condor Heroes, because then you can do the full trilogy. You can watch Legend of Condor Heroes, Return of Condor Heroes, and Heaven's Sword, Dragon Saber. And so I think that that's a good way to go. There are other series too. The Smiling Proud Wanderer has been done into series. A bunch of Gulong stuff has been done into series. Even the 11th Son, which has been done into 2 movies, I think, and and has been translated into English in an official translation. I'm pretty sure there's a drama series for that too. So I would recommend checking out these series, and the reason why is the you get a much deeper dive into something that feels more like a long-term campaign that you can probably apply to running Ogre. A movie is a 2-hour thing or a 1 hour and 30-minute thing. 50 episodes is a much closer approximation to a typical campaign. And you can keep going beyond 50 sessions, but I'm just saying that's a much closer thing to like a weekly campaign that you might be running. So and also I think you get more of the background information about the source material. Sometimes they add stuff to pad things, but and also you do want to look up these series before you view them, because there have been some that are more controversial than others due to things like some of the creative choices or some of the castings. I remember I believe there was one of Return of Condor Heroes that was very controversial. I think it was 2015 or so, and even the 2006. I think the 2006 Legend of Condor Heroes, there was some controversy around the changes they made to the ending. But anyways, I will let you go because I have to leave. But yeah, again, I will talk to you later.